Hey everyone, before we start this episode, I wanted to talk to you about the situation in Maui. The destruction on Maui is considered the worst wildfire in modern U.S. history, with the death toll increasing hourly and over $5 billion in damage. The Maui fires have the attention of the international news cycle. However, this will continue to impact the people of Maui for years longer than one news cycle. On top of the devastation and displacement, corporate interests have already begun trying to grab their scorched land to develop and profit off of the tragedy. Financially supported communities are better positioned to refuse land grab offers, so the more money we give the people of Maui in this crucial time, the better they can provide relief, rebuild, and ensure their land stays theirs for the long haul. The fastest way to spread the word right now is to make videos, communicate what you can in any way you can, whether it be on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube Shorts, and Twitter, encouraging people to donate. So the best place to donate is a donation fund or run by Aina Mamona, a local grassroots nonprofit organization run by Native Hawaiians. The donations made here will go directly to verified Maui families impacted by the wildfires. So I'm going to put the link in the show notes. If you can donate, if you have the ability to do so, and you want to help the people directly, you can go and donate to the link below for Aina Mamona. Like I said before, it's a local grassroots nonprofit organization run by Native Hawaiians. Thank you for your support in advance. I really appreciate it. I'm going to be putting this clip in all of my episodes for the next few weeks, and it's just something that we need to do to help people. We've seen the wrath of climate change, and now it's time to help the people that are affected by the consequences. Thank you so much for your support. Let's start the show. As marine biologists starting our career, we have this idea of what we want to do. We want to protect the ocean. We want to go out and do research and take that research and bring it into the scientific process and go through the scientific process and then tell everybody about our results through science communication. And what you hope is that action is taken. But what we never really think about is the adversity that a lot of marine biologists have to go through to get things protected. And today we're going to be talking about a very interesting case in Rio de Janeiro about a biologist named Mario Moscatelli, who wants to protect and continues and for the last 30 years has worked to protect Guanabara Bay in Rio de Janeiro. Now, Mario has undergone a lot of adversity through his life. To seeing the Guanabara Bay go through a lot of pollution, to working with organizations and trying to pressure a state-owned organization that's in charge of sanitation to do better, and then undergoing intimidation and death threats throughout his career. Well, there's a new documentary, a short documentary by Mongabay News that partnered with Mario to tell the story and his story about the protection of Guanabara Bay in Rio de Janeiro. And we're going to find out more about that on today's episode of How to Protect the Ocean podcast and what it means to be a marine biologist that tries to do something good and has to undergo 30 years just to get one bay intact. We're going to talk about that on this episode of the How to Protect the Ocean podcast. Let's start the show. Hey everybody, welcome back to another exciting episode of the How to Protect the Ocean podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Lewin, and this is the podcast where we find out what's happening in the ocean, how you can speak up for the ocean, and what you can do to live for a better ocean by taking action. And action has been taken by a number of biologists, whether marine or terrestrial or freshwater, around the world for decades. And a lot of times that we keep noticing more and more, especially in developing countries, many of the marine biologists and biologists who are working towards that protection have undergone intimidation and death threats. Some have even been hurt or even worse, been killed over those years. It can be a very difficult process. It could be a very emotional and stressful process. And in this new documentary, a short, about 11-minute documentary by Mongabay News, we are seeing sort of the story behind Guanabara Bay in Rio de Janeiro and what's happened since 1990, since Mario Moscatelli has picked up his sort of his motivation for Guanabara Bay and saying, hey, we need to protect this. We need to protect this bay. We need to bring it back. We need to protect the mangroves surrounding that bay, and we need to go forth and move forward with it. Now, it's been 30 years, over 30 years, and he's just starting to make process. The documentary, you hear from Mario, you hear what he's been going through, and something that needs to happen in order for him to do better, and something that has happened. So we are seeing some success. So it's a bit of a success story, even though there's lots of challenges. So we're going to get into that on today's episode. But before we do, you're going to get inspired in this episode. And if you go and watch the documentary on Mongabay and using the link in the show notes below, you're going to get inspired. And not only are you going to get inspired, you're going to want to become a marine biologist or terrestrial biologist or somebody who's protecting the environment. And that means you're going to want to follow a career path to do such a thing, or maybe to do it better, or maybe to do it more effectively, or go through the same process. I don't know. Obviously you have to be careful in these situations and where you work and how you work, but you want it. You're going to get inspired by the success that's starting to happen, and you want to start a career in marine conservation and science, but you have no idea where to begin. Well, the first place I suggest is you join my program on how to build a career in marine science and conservation. All you have to do is you pay $5 a month. You get a weekly podcast, private podcast to your headphones, and you listen to the tips and strategies that I give you. There's over 25 episodes that are available at this point. You'll get access to all of those episodes, plus new ones that come out every single week. We go through tips, we go through strategies, we go through job ads and how I would apply for a job ad if I were looking at a specific job. And then we talk about the frustrations that go along with finding a job and building a career. But this is for people who want a career in marine science and conservation. You only have to pay $5 on a monthly basis, or you can pay $45 for the year. I think it's really worth it. It's something that is going to help you in the future, and I hope I see you in the program. And if you do join the program, hit me up on Instagram at How to Protect the Ocean to let me know that you've done it, and we'll have a nice little conversation. To join this program, all you have to do is go to speakupforblue.com/career. That's speakupforblue.com, all one word, /career to join today. All right, let's get back into the episode. Now, I want to say, but first thing is you have to watch this documentary. It's a 10-minute and 53-second documentary. Great visuals. You get to see the people. And this is what I love about documentaries, is when we're talking about a particular area or a particular topic, we get to see the people who are involved. We got to meet Mario Moscatelli. We get to meet a number of other people who have like a vested interest in the bay, in Guanabara Bay in Rio de Janeiro. It's something, you get a sense of the people, you get a sense of what they are going through and what they need to go through to be successful in their lives. And it starts off with a person who starts talking about his life. He says, I was born in a dumpster. I grew up in a dumpster. I went on and became a fisherman, and then there was no fish in the bay, and I struggle to buy bread, to get milk, and just to get the basics in life. And so we hear, and it's showing them while he's saying it, it's showing them on a boat with some colleagues to pick up plastics and electronics and everything that are in the mangroves or that are in the forest, and it's just polluting the forest, and it's just everywhere. And he's like, this is why we don't have fish, is because it's contaminated. Now here's the big thing. So Guanabara Bay is in Rio de Janeiro. It is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and it's one of the most polluted coastal ecosystems in the world. It sees about 18,000 liters, that's 4,755 gallons of sewage released to its waters every second. Domestic garbage, industrial waste, appliances, furniture, and even corpses can be found floating in the bay's murky waters. That's absolutely disgusting, and that's what you see. However, the bay resists, and it tries to kind of recoup itself every time. And because of there are environmentalists, there are the efforts of the civil society, popular movements, academics, policy advocates, the Guanabara Bay is, trying to come around and trying to do better. Now, Mario Moscatelli, who's the environmentalist that's featured in this documentary, has been fighting to preserve what's left of Rio de Janeiro's native mangroves. He goes, when you fly over the mangroves in Guanabara Bay, you see them full of garbage. He says, what takes me 20 years to build some guy destroys in 1 week. He goes, and there is no reaction from the government despite the law being clear on protecting the ecosystems. So for 30 years, he's been trying to pressure the government that was running a state-owned sort of sanitation company that weren't doing what they were supposed to do. They weren't doing that sanitation. They weren't helping helping this bay to become cleaner. And that's what you have. You have 18,000 liters a day or liters per second that is released of sewage into the area. Now, the big thing here is it's policy. It's government, right? The government for 30 years haven't really done anything. However, in 2021, they were able to pass a law to privatize the sanitation department or the sanitation of the areas. So now it's in a private company. And the private company has the mandate and the responsibility to clean up the water and to make sure that those 18,000 liters of sewage per second are treated and they're properly treated and they're properly disposed of, so that the waters in the Guanabara Bay are actually better and the fish could come back and the crabs could come back and the mangroves could come back. Now, one of those efforts are the mangroves. The mangroves are not only a coastal system that's very important to coastal systems around the world in tropical areas, but they are also something that's important for biodiversity, and they act as a filter. Just like the Everglades in Florida acts as a filter to take up a lot of nutrients and filter out any kind of pollutants, the same thing goes with mangroves. So the destruction of the mangroves in the past has really been a point of contention, and trying to rebuild mangroves is something that has to be done in the future. And so as an experiment or as a pilot study, Moscatelli actually worked in a lagoon close by to be able to restore and partner with organizations to be able to restore mangroves within the area. Now, those mangroves have been in there for 20 years, and they're starting to see this change. They're starting to see better water quality, more biodiversity. Fish are starting to come back because it acts as a nursery habitat. And so we're starting to see more and more fish, more biodiversity, a better filtration system. Water quality is getting better. Everything is getting better. Now, the private company is now starting to see the fact that, hey, this is actually working. Let's partner with Mario Moscatelli and the other organizations that he's working with, and let's start putting together a plan to put to restore more mangroves. So the video ends based on that. Spoiler alert: the video ends based on that, and that's something that is nice to see, but. And it's kind of like getting to be a success story, but it took 30 years. How many people, just like the fisherman at the beginning of the video, had to go through the suffering of actually trying to get food and pay for food because they didn't have any because they couldn't sell their fish. It's been a very, very frustrating process. And it's just like decades of broken promises to clean up Guanabara Bay. Rio's government, they finally privatized that sewage treatment and sanitation services. And so the concessionaires promised to treat 90% of all the wastewater by 2033 and invest a total of $30 billion. That's 30 billion, I guess, is Reyes, I think is what they call their money there. $6 billion US over 30 years to improve sanitation. And the Agua de Rios, one of the concessionaires, reported after its first year of operation that its investments prevented the daily release of 1 million liters of raw sewage into rivers, canals, and the Guanabara Bay. So based on the most recent estimates from 2014, this amounts to just 0.06% of the total. So a lot of work needs to be done for this sewage, and Mario Moscatelli remains absolutely cautiously optimistic. He is partnered with the private concessionaires to recuperate degraded mangroves, and he also works with local schools, governments, and the public to encourage the protection, monitoring, and the revitalization of Rio's mangrove system or ecosystem. It's a drop in the sea of what needs to be done, admits Moscatelli. It's a calling, despite the dangers, despite the challenges, and I choose to insist. So he continues to do this, and he will continue to work there. But these are the heroes that we need. These are the biologists that work and not only become biologists, but become activists. And we've seen many, many biologists become this. We've seen many people work to dedicate their their lives in a smaller area, a region, if you will, to better the water quality, to better, the fishing and the biodiversity, to make it a more stable ecosystem, to help feed the people, bring in ecotourism. And I think it requires somebody of a lot of resilience to be able to do this. Because just as I mentioned at the beginning, Mario's journey has been fraught with a lot of stress on, of intimidation, of death threats. And, it's something that nobody should go through. But in certain areas, you might get that. There's a lot of money to be saved in not treating the environment for a lot of these big corporations and companies. There's a lot of corruption for every government, even in Canada, we're discovering. And this is something that we have to go through. We have to put pressure on the government. We have to, be activists as well as scientists, communicate these problems in videos such as this, or just like I mentioned last time, just communicate what's going on in every different part of the areas that you're working on so you can get more attention associated, or more attention or more eyes put on your topic. And people can hear that passion within that. It's a great documentary that's on Mongabay about this area, something that I highly recommend that you watch. I'm not getting paid by Mongabay News to promote this, but it's something that I really like to see. I would like to see more of it in the future. So hopefully Mongabay is going to take this as a success story and be able to publish more of this type of work. I want to thank Mario Moscatelli for, doing this work and spending all that time on it, as well as a lot of other movements. There was one movement, which I don't have the name in front of me right now, but it was really to help the indigenous groups around the area, the local groups, to be able to get their culture back, their their fishing, their rights back into that area and other areas surrounding Rio de Janeiro, to be able to fulfill sort of their culture and what they do. So that's really great to see that there's a lot of collaborations going on, a lot of alliances for not only the environment but for the people. And if you want to manage the environment, you have to manage the people. And what they did notice too is one note in the documentary is that the people who were indigenous of the land, when they took care of their land, when they were in charge of taking care of their land was pristine, their land was healthy, and it also gave back to them in terms of fish and hunting and so forth. And it was really great to see. And so hopefully, they can work with the government. I believe there's a new national government right now that is a little bit more environmentally friendly. Hopefully they can work with that government to not only clean up Guanabara Bay faster, but also work with local groups, indigenous groups, to be able to bring back that culture, bring back that vitalization, and maybe bring some ecotourism in certain areas and some more sustainable businesses that will help secure and help kind of make it a better environment, more resilient. So that's it for today's episode. Love to hear your thoughts on that, on the video as well after you watch it. Hit me up on Instagram at How to Protect the Ocean. And if you want to become a marine biologist, you want to have a career in marine biology, you've just graduated and you're looking to build out your career, just go to speakupforblue.com, all one word, /career. That's speakupforblue.com/career to sign up for that private podcast that gives you the tips, tricks, strategies, and job ads that will help you get a job and build a career in marine science and conservation. So go speakupforblue.com /career. And I want to thank you so much for joining us on this episode of the How to Protect the Ocean podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Lewin. Have a great day. We'll talk to you next time, and happy conservation.